Wesley says, yes, in that sense, very different. I just meant it's not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. It's not easy to change the status quo. Like, unless things are really going badly for people. Usually people don't want to change. I'm not that familiar with the Catalonia situation. Like, why do they want independence? I know that historically they were autonomous. Well, there's a lot of uncertainty when things change, right? Like, you don't know what's gonna happen. Okay, Llama, you need to get out of here. No, don't jump at me. I'm not entirely sure what the grievance is. Like, why do people feel, or why do Catalonians feel that they would be better off independent? Something about their tax dollars being spent on the rest of Spain. It's not really a... Well, maybe it is. I mean, the Americans had their revolution because of that. but when the Americans had their independence, I mean, they were on the other side of the ocean. I'm not too sure either, says Wesley. I haven't really been following it that much. Yeah, no. I personally have not seen a compelling argument for Catalonian independence. And that's not to say there isn't one, it's just saying that I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I haven't looked clearly enough. One, two, three, four, five, six. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, that's correct. Put that back. There. And there. Chickens. Funny. I mean, the impression I get is the Brexit vote was not really based on logic or calculation. It was based on feelings. Feelings and misunderstanding. I think the Brexit vote really revealed two different sides of the UK that don't really understand each other, right? There are some people in the UK who really benefit from globalization and free markets. And then there are some people who have been left out. I mean, when you read about the interviews with people who voted no or voted yes to exit, they talk about how joining the EU didn't benefit them. In fact, it made their lives worse, like they lost their jobs. And then when you read about the interviews about people who wanted to stay in the EU, they talk about how much money they make being part of the EU. And so it's the same country, but there's one group of people who make a lot of money from being in the EU. And then there's another group who lose a lot of money from being in the EU. And so they just completely they're completely different lives, and you're like, well, maybe if you actually shared the money a bit more evenly, then you would agree on something for once. I mean, some people were left behind, and then other people were making money, a lot of money, and then the two groups just don't understand each other at all. But the EU is a bit like that. The EU is so complicated. There's so much bureaucracy. And the more bureaucracy you have, the more you end up being controlled by the rich and the powerful. Sharing is the problem. Well, the problem is that, you know, a society doesn't work like that. I mean, if you have a table, your table needs at least 3 legs, right? You can't break one of the legs off your table and then put it on the other side to give it to the other legs. The table will fall over, right? Like, a society can only stand up when everybody is able to stand up. You can't just, you know, knock some of them over and then expect the society to be fine. People don't seem to, or some people don't seem to understand that, which it seems bizarre to me. I mean, the concept of money itself, I think, is people misunderstand it. I think just what money is. Money is only useful if you can use it to buy stuff from other people. Like, money itself is just numbers. Like, money only makes sense if you can go to a shop and buy things. Which means money only makes sense if there are people selling stuff. Money only makes sense if there are people making stuff that you can buy. Money only makes sense if there are other people who are productive, who are making stuff that can be sold to you. So the notion that you can screw other people over to take more money for yourself, I think is the biggest fallacy, because if they can't make stuff for you anymore, your money means nothing. Like, you can have all the money, but then your money can't buy anything. And that doesn't make any sense. And the house prices thing, going back to New Zealand, and well, if you would just devalue a currency, all hell would break loose. That's a different issue, though. Because people would have no reason to. No, they would still have reason to do stuff, Wesley. They just won't have any reason to use money. I mean, here's the thing, like, if money doesn't work anymore, people still need to eat, right? People still need the necessities. I mean, if the currency falls apart, people would just go back to bartering. They'll barter the chicken for a loaf of bread or something, instead of buying and selling things with money. It'll be I mean, it'll be a problem. But I don't think it's there are people will have no reason to do anything anymore. I don't think that's it. I think people will have to reevaluate their reasons for doing things. Because you always have to eat, right? You always have to have a place to live. You need money. You need you need transport. You still need stuff. But if money doesn't work, then you have to find a different way to get those things. Is what it means. People will still have reasons to do things, Wesley, I'm pretty sure. I'm really concerned that some people confuse the or they confuse the tool for the result, right? Money is the tool. Money is what you use to buy the stuff you want. Money is not the thing you want, really. Right? So money is the tool, it's not the result. The result you want is you want food, you want a house, you want to buy nice things. But people confuse the tool with the end result, and so people just end up wanting money itself, which is probably a mistake. Because that doesn't make any sense, like money is just numbers. Most people think that money means power, says Wesley, which in a sense is true. Money can buy, I mean, to the extent that money can buy stuff, it is true. To the extent that money can buy stuff, it is true. It's also a very bad weapon of choice, yeah. I mean, if people just ignore your money, then you're screwed. And they can't do that. Like, it's not easy, but people can just ignore your money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a while back, I think Venezuela decided not to use the US dollar as its to buy and sell its oil. I mean, they've been screwed over by the US since then. But you know, like, or when the Chinese decide, I think they did the same thing. They decide not to use US dollars. They're gonna use Chinese dollars to exchange. So I mean, when you're big like that, when you're a whole country, you can choose to like switch your currency, for example. Or alternatively, the UK never joined the Eurozone, right? The UK kept its British pound and never adopted the euro as its currency. I mean, that is it's fighting over who controls the currency, and that is, in a way, fighting over power. But it illustrates how money is not a is not a fixed thing. It's an invented thing. People invent a currency and then they control it and then they gain power because other people use the currency. If other people don't use the currency, then they have less power. If we all stop using US dollars to trade and switch to using euros to trade, then the US would lose control of the world economy and the Europeans would gain control of the world economy, right? So money is a money isn't a fixed thing. Money is only useful if other people want your money, I guess is the summary. Which, you know, it might seem strange to say that because of course people want money. Of course people want, who doesn't want money? Well, you know, sometimes people don't want your money. It doesn't happen often, but when it happens, all of a sudden you find yourself in trouble. And that's why Bitcoins are coming up now, I guess, says Wesley. Bitcoin is... I mean, it has its own problems. Although, I mean, it's illustrative, though, Bitcoin. The idea that you can create a currency, right? I mean, it's illustrative of my point, being that as long as people want your money, it makes sense. And if people don't want your money, then it doesn't make sense. So Bitcoin, enough people want Bitcoins that Bitcoins have value. Like, it's just freaking numbers. I honestly don't know anything about it apart from a few things I've heard. Bitcoin, well, it's interesting to read about. The biggest problem with Bitcoin, I think, is the way that it's generated. So instead of having a central bank of a country printing money to determine how much money is in circulation, Bitcoin has an algorithm that generates Bitcoins over time, randomly. I don't know if it still runs. So there's no one controls how many Bitcoins there are in the world. It's just an algorithm that generates them. And then over time, as more and more people want to use Bitcoins, but the number of Bitcoins in circulation have not increased, the value of each Bitcoin has increased over time because there's a scarcity, right? There's not enough Bitcoins for people to use. So over time, more and more people want to use Bitcoins, but there's not any more Bitcoins in circulation. So demand has increased, but supply has not, and therefore the price of Bitcoins have increased. It seems a bit like a scam to me, to be honest, because the early adopters, the people who started mining Bitcoins early on, have, through no effort of their own, become incredibly wealthy if they kept the Bitcoins they first acquired. So if you got a few Bitcoins a long time ago, now they'll be worth like thousands of dollars. Like, you used to get them for like $10, a Bitcoin for $10. Now they're worth thousands of dollars. And it's all artificial scarcity. Yeah, I mean, Wesley says that Bitcoin feels like a scam, yes. But maybe it's interesting that it illustrates how all money is kind of like a scam. Because how is Bitcoin any different from any other currency? Like the money that I use now, New Zealand dollars, it's just the government prints New Zealand dollars and then we use it to exchange. Wesley says, my nephew has a few miners at his home and told me a few things about how the algorithms work. Okay. Well, how much money has your nephew made? That's the key part of it. Like, how much money has your nephew made? And how much time has it took him to make that money? All money is like that though. As long as people believe it has value, then it has value. Your nephew hardly made anything? Well, it's not. Doesn't seem worthwhile then, does it? You had to start really early to make money with Bitcoins. It's too late now, I'm pretty sure. But all currency is a bit like that. Currency has value for as long as people believe it has value. I mean, things like gold. gold has value, apparently. But really, why does gold have value? I think he probably spent more on the miners than he could have possibly made. It's quite possible, Wesley. I mean, the PCs aren't cheap in any sense. Yeah, no. I mean, gold has value because people want gold. That's all there is. I mean, these days there is actually uses for gold. There's industrial uses for gold. Because it doesn't corrode. So you can use it in high performance electronics. But for a long time, gold was just decorative. And it has a lot of value. For a long time, gold was the currency that people used. I mean, you can't eat it, right? You can't really do anything useful with it. Anyway, I'm a money skeptic, but I also understand that because money only makes sense if people believe in it. The more people there are like me, the less effective money is. And if too many people think the way I do, then money might stop working altogether. And then we'll be in trouble. Because we won't have a medium of exchange. I mean, money is still useful. I don't believe in it, but it's still useful. Oops. One, two, three. Yeah. Yeah, Wesley says, I'm very skeptical, but I still use it because I have to. I mean, we all have to.